Hi everyone, and welcome back to Improved Version, a channel dedicated to sharing profound knowledge for holistic self-development through the lens of great books, the power of music, and the sacred journey toward finding inner peace. We often hear the popular saying, "A strong soul begins with enjoying solitude." But how many of us truly understand what enjoying solitude actually means? Is enjoying solitude merely about having the ability to live alone, or the stamina to silently endure the weight of sadness? Is it about rejecting social connection entirely, deciding we no longer need friends or lovers, and defensively telling ourselves, "I'm perfectly fine on my own"? Has enjoying solitude become a modern trend that unintentionally builds an invisible, icy wall separating us from the beauty of the outside world? Psychologist Hu Shen Zhi once observed that many of our addictive behaviors, repeated in a compulsive and often destructive way, are actually clear signals that we haven't yet learned how to handle the complex relationship between ourselves and the world. For example, during a normal week, you're frantically busy and claim to have no time for yourself. Yet, the moment you're finally free, you spend hours mindlessly scrolling through short videos on your phone. You know deep down that this behavior is wrong and unfulfilling, but it feels like a physical addiction. You get lost in the digital noise, immersing yourself in shallow entertainment, while simultaneously feeling a growing sense of self-hatred for wasting your precious life. If you find yourself trapped in such behaviors, it is a glaring sign of a deep, unaddressed loneliness within you. That kind of loneliness is not a source of nourishment for your life, nor is it something you can ever truly enjoy. The book we are exploring today, titled Just Enough Loneliness by psychologist Hu Shen Zhi, offers a subtle and fresh perspective on this universal human struggle. It points out the vital boundary between toxic loneliness and nourishing loneliness. The author argues that enjoying loneliness is not just about internal processing. It is about the story you need to confront regarding the connection between your true self and the world around you. To truly enjoy loneliness and transform it into the raw material needed to weave a powerful, rich, and meaningful life, you need to learn how to live with just enough loneliness. Most people struggle because they confuse the concept of solitude with the state of loneliness. Solitude is often an external state of physical condition where you have no one by your side. Imagine, for instance, you attend a large party where everyone else is a stranger. You see groups of people who clearly know each other. They're laughing, talking happily, and sharing inside jokes. You find it incredibly difficult to fit in. You long for someone to pay attention to you, to validate your presence, but no one initiates a conversation. At this moment, you feel the sharp sting of being solitary. This feeling is similar to the experience of wanting to find someone to confide in after a long day. But as you scroll through your phone's contact list, you realize you don't know who to call. You feel that no one would truly care or understand. You're left to face your sadness alone. This is the weight of solitude. Loneliness, however, is a much deeper internal feeling. It is a psychological state that can persist even when you have someone right next to you. You can be in a long-term relationship, sitting on the same couch as your partner, and still feel a profound sense of sadness and distress, because that person doesn't actually understand your deepest thoughts and feelings. Loneliness isn't caused by the absence of people. It is caused by the absence of intimacy and the inability to share your most important emotions with another soul. It is the tragedy of two people being together for years, yet their conversations never rise above the surface of everyday logistics, like what to eat for dinner or which bills to pay. When you have a joyful idea or a heavy burden you want to share, but the person closest to you cannot grasp its significance. The resulting feeling is a piercing loneliness in a noisy, bustling world. Loneliness is essentially the nature of human existence. The existentialist philosopher Martin Heidegger used the word thrownness to describe this condition. From the moment we are born, we are thrown into this world as unique individuals, carrying a baggage of emotions, perceptions, and experiences that are unlike anyone else's. No matter how hard we try, no one can ever truly and fully enter our inner world. This is the ultimate barrier of the self. As the ancient sage Zhuangzi once asked, "You're not a fish, so how can you truly know the joy of a fish?" The presence of others can offer comfort, but it cannot erase the fundamental reality of the soul's isolation. Everyone has a secret room in their heart where no one else is allowed to set foot. Loneliness is therefore unavoidable, but it is not something we should spend our lives fearing. It only becomes a terrible burden when we face it with a sense of insecurity and discomfort. Hu Shen Zhi divides loneliness into 3 distinct types to help us identify where we stand. The first is self-isolating loneliness or self-imposed isolation. This occurs when a person has a closed personality and does not proactively seek opportunities to connect. They avoid social interaction and withdraw into their own private space, often because they view others as a threat or a source of exhaustion. When someone tries to initiate a conversation, they feel it as a heavy burden rather than a gift. The tragedy of this state is that while they prefer being alone, they still feel a lingering sadness because they haven't found peace in that isolation. The second type is passive loneliness. This is the state of many people who do not proactively separate themselves from the world. In fact, they want deep connections. They want to be seen and understood. Yet, despite their desires, they cannot seem to bridge the gap. Their attempts at sharing their whole self in a relationship only ever reach the surface. They feel as though they are shouting from behind a glass wall, heard but not understood. This leads to chronic disappointment and the sense of helplessness, which often calcifies into a permanent state of being. The third type is active loneliness, which is a voluntary and empowered choice. For these individuals, solitude is not a prison but a form of freedom. They prefer the tranquility of being alone over the exhausting noise of superficial society. They might feel a little bored from time to time, but they never feel insecure. They see solitude as a way to avoid meaningless social rituals and as a space for absolute self-enjoyment. As one writer put it, how miraculous are those moments of quiet where we are truly born within our own solitude. When you look closely at these 3 types, you realize that behind self-imposed isolation is often a desperate search for security, a way to avoid potential emotional harm. Passive loneliness reflects a deep-seated, unfulfilled desire for recognition. But those who practice active loneliness have learned a vital secret. They have learned how to handle the behaviors that normally trigger the fear of being alone. Without understanding the deeper psychology of why we fear being alone, we can listen to all the enjoy your own company advice in the world, and we will still be trapped in a vicious cycle of negative feelings. One of the primary behaviors that fuels the fear of loneliness is the act of hiding ourselves behind masks. We see this in the archetype of the comedian who makes the whole world laugh, but cries the moment the stage lights go down. Many people live their entire lives behind such masks. We see the supermoms who strive to be the perfect role model for everyone, the doting mother, the capable wife, the high-achieving employee. But behind that polished exterior is a soul that is utterly exhausted every night. While the rest of the world sleeps, her loneliness overflows in the quiet of the kitchen. We see the people who are always the life of the party, always cheerful and knowing exactly how to make others laugh. Yet, they go home to sit silently for hours, aimlessly scrolling through their phones to numb the silence. We see the obedient children and excellent students who are the pride of their families. They force themselves to study topics they hate because they fear disappointing their parents or being judged as incompetent by their peers. Deep down, they feel like soulless machines, disconnected from their own desires. Then there are those with the perfect family and stable career who dare not admit they are suffering emotionally because they are terrified of societal judgment. They continue to play their assigned roles, suppressing their true emotions to meet the expectations of an outside world that doesn't really know them. As the psychologist Carl Jung once suggested, we cannot truly shine if we constantly deny our own darkness. When you try to present yourself as perfect, fearing rejection and hurt, you slowly become alienated from your own soul. This is why you fear loneliness, because when you're alone, you can no longer perform for an audience. You need people to watch your show to feel like you exist. But if you have become a stranger to yourself, no one else can truly connect with you. Loneliness then becomes an invisible prison rather than a space for healing. The second behavior that makes us fear loneliness is viewing the world as a relentless arena of competition. Many of us have a distorted desire to feel superior to others. But when that desire turns into a race to win at life, it builds a massive barrier against genuine connection. We become preoccupied with comparing who is right and who is wrong, who is better and who is worse. We turn friends and colleagues into rivals to be surpassed, forgetting that in the battle to be better, we have already lost our authentic selves. This is the paradox of the superiority complex. The more a person tries to prove they are above others, the more they are actually filled with a deep-seated inferiority complex. Those trapped in the cycle only ever receive loneliness as their reward. They become their own enemies, afraid to stop moving for fear of being left behind. You cannot harmonize with a world that you view as an opponent. You cannot feel true love when you are constantly calculating gains and losses. The third behavior is narcissism, or the overestimation of the self. Narcissists often live in a state of a false self, protected by layers of vanity and built on the expectations of others. Their relationships are usually superficial because they lack the capacity for real connection. There are 3 types of narcissism that ruin intimacy. First is parallel narcissism, where a person has the illusion that others must be exactly like them. They want their partners to change to suit their standards but refuse to change themselves. Second is exaggerated narcissism, seen in people who constantly show off to impress others, like those who post photos with celebrities just to prove their status, without having any real connection to those people. Third is idealized narcissism, where people act solely to maintain a perfect image. They post edited, perfect moments on social media, the fancy food, the luxury travel, the profound-sounding quotes, not because they enjoyed the moment, but because they want the world to believe their life is perfect. The further we stray from our true nature to maintain this glamour, the more miserable and lonely we become. The final behavior that causes suffering through loneliness is the habit of excessive self-sacrifice. A person with a self-sacrificing personality often pushes their true needs and emotions deep into their subconscious. Consider the mother who always gives the best food to her child but refuses to admit she wanted to enjoy it herself. Or the person who believes love means tolerating toxic behavior at all costs. They play the role of the eternal giver, helping everyone without expecting anything in return. But this is often a lie. When their sacrifice is not recognized or reciprocated, they feel a deep sense of pain and resentment. They ask, why do I give so much love, but no one loves me back? Meanwhile, the recipient of this sacrifice often feels pressured by an unspoken debt, which eventually leads to distance and a rift in the relationship. A relationship can only be sustainable when both sides feel truly valued and seen. So, how do we free ourselves from this paralyzing fear of loneliness? Is loneliness a strength or a burden? It all depends on whether you can achieve the state of just enough loneliness. This is the healthy middle ground that allows you to live happily and be your true self within society. We must accept that humans are social creatures who cannot survive without connection. But we must also realize that losing our individual boundaries leads to self-destructs. A balanced level of loneliness means maintaining your personal space and your secret room, while still building high-quality, authentic relationships. It means being independent enough not to rely on others for your basic sense of worth, but open enough not to fall into total isolation. Many of us fear loneliness because we are desperately searching for a stable partner to rescue us from ourselves. We want someone who can meet every emotional need, provide constant comfort, and offer a permanent safe haven. If you find such a soulmate, it is a wonderful gift. However, if your happiness depends entirely on that person, you are in a dangerous position. If they become indifferent or fail to meet your needs for even a day, your world collapses. True transformation happens when you recognize that the stable partner you're looking for shouldn't be another person. It must be found within yourself. The most crucial step on this journey is learning the art of self-acceptance. As the saying goes, true loneliness isn't about being alone. It's about being enabled to connect with yourself. When you stop tormenting yourself with the feeling that you're not good enough, and when you stop comparing your life to the filtered versions of others, you find peace. When you no longer fear rejection because you have already accepted yourself, you can finally experience true solitude without the sting of loneliness. Accepting your own imperfections also makes it much easier to accept the shortcomings of others. As vulnerability experts like Brené Brown have noted, we cannot truly connect with others if we are not willing to be vulnerable and show our true, unmasked selves. When you take off your masks and live authentically, you naturally begin to see the world through a lens of truth. You stop wasting your energy on fake, superficial relationships and start building genuine connections. You will no longer feel the need to force yourself to make meaningless friends just to avoid being alone. Quality relationships will find you when you're no longer running away from yourself. Another way to transform your experience of being alone is to actively enrich your life. Many people equate richness only with material wealth, spending their entire lives trying to make more money or surpass their neighbors. But a life focused only on external gain leaves the inner self impoverished and starving. In the famous hierarchy of needs, physiological safety and material security are only the base layers. If you expend all your energy there, you will never feel truly fulfilled. True richness comes from doing work that stems from a clear understanding of your purpose. It comes from engaging in creative acts where you're completely immersed in the flow. It comes from finding joy in the simple act of breathing, reading a book, exercising, or sitting silently in nature. When you possess a rich inner world, you can proactively choose to connect with the world on your own terms, or you can proactively embrace solitude and enjoy the bliss of being alone. As the poets say, solitude is where we truly meet ourselves. It is where we learn to love the empty spaces in our lives and realize they are actually full of meaning. My hope for you is that the solitude within you is just enough to feel that you truly exist as an independent being, enough to find the missing pieces of your soul when you're away from the crowd, and enough to understand that every moment spent with yourself is a precious opportunity to regenerate and renew. When you accept loneliness as an integral part of a rich life, you realize that nothing is more precious than living authentically. As Lao Tzu taught, "He who knows others is wise, but he who understands himself is truly enlightened." I wish for you to have the courage to face your true self and to savor each step you take in your own solitude. May those steps allow you to live slowly, deeply, and with a heart that is no longer afraid of the quiet. Thank you so much for listening to today's journey. If you found this reflection on loneliness and solitude helpful, please share it with the lonely souls you see in your own life. Give them the gift of love and validation so they know they are not alone in their struggle. By sharing this, we move closer to meeting each other as our truest, most authentic selves. Every like and every comment you leave helps me understand you better and helps this video reach the people who need to hear this message the most. If you're passionate about your own holistic self-development and want to keep exploring the wisdom of great books that can change your life, please take a moment to subscribe to the Improved Version channel. We are building a community of seekers who are dedicated to finding inner peace and living with intention. Click that notification bell so you never miss our weekly deep dives into the knowledge that nourishes the soul. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for your sincerity and your support. I look forward to seeing you in our next video. Until then, take care of your heart, enjoy your solitude, and keep moving toward the light.